The Bucs offered backup quarterback Mike Glennon a contract that would make him the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL, first reported by Bleacher Report, and a source confirmed to our Adam Kaplan. Glennon turned down the offer because he wants to be a starting quarterback and plans to test the free agency market. On that note, we bring in a ray of sunshine. Merrill Hodge, how are we doing?
It's gray outside. It's raining too, man. So,
yeah, you're bringing the sunshine to us, though. Max, I want to start with you. Is this a good move or a bad move by the Bucs to make Glennon the highest paid backup?
You know, I love this idea, and you know who I think should be happiest about it is Jameis Winston, because Glennon ain't going to take his job. He's just a competent, reliable player and probably the best backup. He's the best quarterback. The reason there's so much heat on him right now, I think he's the best non-branded starter quarterback available, I think. You know, and he doesn't have the same kind of pizzazz that Jimmy Garoppolo has right now. But we've seen him. He's a competent, reliable player at the backup quarterback position. And a funny thing happens. Teams think that they're serious about winning, and that's where they can save some money, backup quarterback. Well, if you don't have one, what happens? What happened to Oakland? What happened to Pittsburgh when Roethlisberger went down?
It can cost you your season.
Now compare that to what happened in New England. Now, they're not paying Garoppolo yet, but they had a guy who could play there. It makes all the difference. If you're serious about winning, you need a backup quarterback. It reminds me of first base in Major League Baseball. It's the easiest defensive position to play, so teams always thought, stick your worst defender there, don't worry, get the bat in the lineup. And what they learned over time is, just because it's the easiest to play doesn't mean you don't need defense there. Now things are changing. Just because your starter probably won't get hurt doesn't mean you don't need a good insurance plan. You do.
So what are we saying here?
I love what Tampa's doing here.
He's 5-13 as a starter. He's never completed better than 59% of his passes. Until last year, where he threw 11 passes and completed 10 of them. We respect that in 2 games, none of which he started. I look at it from the standpoint that you want to back up, sure, but do you want to pay him an exorbitant amount of dollars? How much faith is that showing in Jameis Winston? I question things like that when something like that happens. It's not that we
That's
don't
where
need a
my
backup.
mind went to.
It's not that we don't need a backup. It's not that a backup is not important. But when you're willing to pay money to an unproven commodity, that reeks of some sort of nepotism in my mind where, you know, I like the guy. He's a real good kid. I like him. I have affection for him. Let's keep him here. We like him. We know him. As opposed to how actually productive he is. I am not saying that Mike Glennon doesn't belong in the NFL. I'm not saying that he couldn't be productive for somebody. But if you know you got the man as your franchise player in Jameis Winston, for you to be willing to allocate those kind of funds for a backup tells me there's either a lack of confidence that you have in Jameis Winston, or there's some real coziness going on in Tampa, Florida.
I think they're hooking Winston up. He ain't going to take his job. He's an insurance policy.
I'm going to lean over towards Max.
Okay.
And here's why. Dirk Cutter is the head coach there, was the offensive coordinator. You mentioned, you know, the numbers. They weren't very good. And I think that he did play for Dirk 1 year.
Yes.
In this.
Yes.
Didn't have the people around him Jameis Winston has. Didn't have the running game. I think that Dirk being there understands to what you're alluding to. If Jameis Winston were to get hurt, I got almost a similar clone. A guy that can still orchestrate and run my offense, do the things I need to do, and we don't take this 180 turn. We're like, oh, Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt. Okay, Carr gets hurt. What do? Okay, we got to start. We got to dummy it down. We can only do A and B. We can't do A to Z. They can do A to Z if Jameis Winston were to get hurt. And I really do believe that is why they're trying to keep him.
Would they be tempted, Stephen A., to have a shorter leash with him there? That's my question. If you know you have Glennon, if Jameis struggles a little bit, are you more apt to?
I don't see that. But listen, if you're telling me, because Glennon is somewhat of a clone, that he enables Dirk Cutter to do exactly what they would be doing when Jameis Winston is in the game. If he were to go down, you don't really have to change anything up, then I'm going to lean on your football expertise to not fight that notion. All I'm saying is I'm counting the dollars, and I'm thinking about a backup. And I'm saying a backup with dollars is what gives me cause to pause.
Now, that's a different subject. Now, if you think about the money, and listen, I'm not a salary cap. That's not what I do. You know, I don't know what salary cap are. But let's say they've worked it so like we can keep him at this dollar, but we can continue to build our team. I completely get it.
I guess they're not paying Jameis yet.
Right.
What they're going to pay him.
Right. So you got a 2-year window there where we can move around based on how it's set up.
Whoa. What are you trying to imply? That somehow, some way, because they didn't pay Jameis yet, that if Jameis somehow is struggling, that Mike Glennon and somebody's going to be there? I'm just making sure.
Look at the line.
I'm just making sure. You worried me there for a second.
It's the same way I feel about the Cowboys. Everyone wants Romo moved and everything. If I were the Cowboys, I'd try to talk Romo into backing up Dak, because if Dak gets hurt, it preserves Romo, who's injury prone. If Dak gets hurt, you have a quarterback. And everyone's like, well, now he's expendable. You don't want to spend that money. All I know is when they drafted Dak, they had a line item for quarterback. This is how much we're spending. That hasn't changed. Why deal Romo? It's an insurance policy. Same thing here. You're not paying Jameis yet. You got a little extra cash. Do you think quarterbacks are important?
I think he's taking into account money. You're not taking into account the human instinct. And what I mean by that is this. You're 36 years old if you're Tony Romo. You've never been to a conference championship game. Obviously, you've never been to a Super Bowl. Really, really obviously, you never won a Super Bowl. And at 36 with a 78-49 regular season record, who's everybody is saying could still do some things if he's healthy, you don't want to keep him there as a backup because you feel like you might owe him more than that. And if you keep him there, he's not going to be happy being a backup because he knows his other potential. That ain't Mike Glennon.
All I'm saying is backup quarterback, Merrill, is an incredibly important position in tackle football. And if you got to spend, you'd like not to spend money there, but if you have to for an insurance policy, spend the money.
According to Twitter, not that we're going to trust Twitter, this could all be a moot point because they're saying that Glennon's talking to Chicago Bears and that could potentially be what's happening.
I do think that they
well,
have
listen, that's
to be
what
careful.
he wants to. I mean, now if I understand Glennon's situation, he is a unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
Well, now, people have to appreciate this and understand this. A team can do all they could possibly do financially to make you want to stay here, and a player say no. I'm going to go. That's why I'm a free agent.
Well, if he wants to start and he has an opportunity to start.
And I wouldn't blame him. Actually, I'd be more concerned about him if he is willing to stay there and be a backup.
You're right.
I'd be more
And
concerned.
just cash a paycheck rather than have a chance to compete.
So you being comfortable and sitting behind a guy is what you really like?
Especially when you're a young player and you're sitting behind a young player.
So I like it. I'm good. That's actually good. It's a good tweeting right there. I like seeing someone who's going to go out there.
I must ask you what you think would be the ideal landing spot for him. I must confess to you, when I hear of any youngster going to Chicago, I am concerned. There's a disease there in Chicago that you can catch. It's called Jay Cutler disease. You don't want to be contaminated by anything that he has touched. I mean, it could take you down. I am concerned about that with a young quarterback. How do you feel about Glennon in Chicago as opposed to the New York Jets or somebody else?
I'm going to go right to who their head coach is, John Fox, who I know very well. And the one thing I do appreciate about Foxy, and he's done this over his career, he has brought quarterbacks that weren't considered, franchise guys, got them to the Super Bowl by going down, running the football, protecting them, getting things up. Not saying, hey, we got Glennon, that's how we're going to.
But the two guys he got to the Super Bowl was Jake Delhomme and Peyton Manning.
Well, keep in mind, okay, Jake Delhomme, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You got Jake Delhomme, who we wouldn't consider a franchise guy, but they maximized Jake Delhomme. They had a great running game.
14 years ago.
Peyton Manning was on the decline in where he was going. Now, keep in mind, when they walked into that Super Bowl, I think people forget the Denver Broncos. They were depleted on it as a team. I mean, Von Miller wasn't playing. I mean, you could go on and on. Defensively, they were absolutely depleted. But Foxy understands. You got to have that piece, and how good is that piece, and then where do I got to lean on to help get the most out of that piece?
Much more sense for Chicago than the Jets, right? Who look like they're rebuilding, or no?
I don't know what the Jets are doing. To be honest with you, I'm telling you,
that's a hot mess.
Yeah, they're confused. We do a whole hour on that.
One other thing I want to throw at you before we let you go, though. Now, the Bucs were 23rd in total ranked defense. So does that concern you at all? Like, where are we allocating our resources here? Because we really need to work on the defensive side of the ball if you have a franchise quarterback.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, I'm not a salary cap guy, but listen.
But in terms of bringing players in, it helped the Giants.
To your point, if I go and sign up Glennon for $15 million and now I can't get my defense better or I can't pay people, that's a huge mistake. Because now I got all this money on a guy who's just sitting there versus guys who contribute. As a player, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting in the locker room going, what? What are you doing here?
Yeah. We need help on the other side of the ball.
That's why I was saying with the salary. If you can handle it, but you can still make us better defensively, but what you put in there isn't hurting us, I'm all for it.
That'll be interesting to see how they handle that side of the ball, though.
You don't have to spend for your backup quarterback. Don't. But if you got to, do not sleep on how important that is. We talked about it earlier. Oakland and others really suffered because they didn't have a guy who was ready.
It takes a lot more than talent to be a backup. You have to want to be there. That matters.
Free agency officially opens up Thursday, so we'll see how it all plays out. Meryl, always good to see you.
Always good to see you guys.